So you want to know about accreditation. First off, what the hell is accreditation? And why should you care? So where students run into problems is that if you're looking for a college or university to attend, and especially, as you think about completing a bachelor's degree, an example that I could give would be, think about buying a car. Would you buy a car without first checking up on its history? Has it been in an accident? Does it get good reviews? Would you just pick it up, without test driving it? Maybe it's a piece of crap. You'd want to first do your homework to determine if it's quality. And that's what we think about with accreditation, is a school a quality institution? Or think about dating. You go on a blind date. Who is setting you up as far as that blind date? Is it your parent? Or is it a close friend that can say, oh, this person's legit? So we think about quality. And when you hear things like, okay, this college is regionally accredited or nationally accredited, first off, regional accreditation is what you're looking for, because this matters. If you go to a college that is not accredited, that does not have regional accreditation, this leads to problems. First off, your credits probably won't transfer if that college is not accredited. Also, students that attend those schools that are unaccredited, chances are that you might end up defaulting on your loans. Those schools are expensive, but those schools have little to no reputability. So we want you to attend an institution that has regional accreditation. Now, the next step beyond that is thinking about a particular major or a program that you're going into. I'll give two examples: engineering and business. Again, quality. So quality of the institution as a whole, but also quality of the program. So for business, we think about, is your business program AACSB accredited? For engineering, is your program ABET accredited? And I've included these links in the description of in this video. But that's a great way to determine, okay, not only is my school accredited, but is my program of a high reputation? So this is a quick tip, and be sure again to look at the description in this video. And I've included some things because it can be hard to find as far as how to determine, how do I even find out? There's 5,000 colleges out there, and how do I know which ones are reputable and which ones aren't? Especially when you're thinking about online classes. That'll be in a different video. So thank you, and by all means, make sure to subscribe to this channel to learn more. Hello, this is Brian, and I am with April Ponte, high school counselor. I've known April for about 6 to 7-ish years, and she's one of my favorite individuals, and it's been a pleasure to know her, and is an expert not only in from a high school education standpoint as a counselor, but I know her back from the wonderful University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, where she did some amazing work. She's student-focused, and I sure hope that students have connected with her in her role. But April, thank you so much for your willingness to do this.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to answer some questions and hopefully help some people out too.
Awesome. Thank you. So April, it's June, and as I understand it, school is no longer in session for high schools right now because it's the summertime.
Yep.
And right now it seems like the world is turned upside down with all the current events. And I am confident that students are feeling a great sense of anxiety as they're kind of approaching getting ready for college and as they're trying to plan for college, I would ask you, I mean, what would be your advice right now for any college-bound high school students in the midst of a global pandemic in COVID-19? I'd be interested to hear your input.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been hard. And, for the current seniors, the class of 2020, you definitely feel for them because they've had a lot of maybe traditions is the best way to say it, taken away from them. That sense of normalcy as they finish their high school career. So, graduations are looking different, proms are canceled, a lot of, award banquets and those types of things that happen at the end of the year couldn't happen. So to add more uncertainty about, it's already anxiety provoking for them to kind of think about college in the future and moving on into their adult life as it is. And now putting the pandemic on top of it is definitely going to cause, even more stress on them. But the students that I've talked to or parents that have reached out with those types of concerns, at this point, I think kind of the best advice that we're able to give them is to really consider what the factors are right now that are going to be impacting those decisions for their future. For the most part, I would like to see that students are still continuing with the plan that they had prior to the pandemic and still plan ahead for college as if everything is still going to be open in the fall. Only because with everything so far, at least in the last few months, there's really been changes to what the guidelines are. I mean, almost week to week. And what can open, how much can open, capacities in different buildings and different situations, and what that looks like. So I think for the most part, at least from what I can tell in the schools in Illinois, a lot of them are preparing, or at least saying right now they're preparing to open up in the fall. Because what will happen is if the situation is still not safe at that time, the colleges will let you know. But they're going to make every effort to be available for students in the fall because they have to operate too. And they want as much as anybody else to see the students come back to campus in some capacity or at least be a part of that college family that they were accepted into. So, and if that's, not going to be possible because of a family circumstances, whether that's financially or health-wise, I think it's just every student, every family needs to know what their limitations are at this time. And so if any of those really big limitations of money or, health concerns are going to be an issue, those are the areas that I would say, make sure that you have a backup plan. And there's plenty of ways to do that. And whether that's, choosing a different four-year college close to home, going to the community college, some students are considering taking a gap year. So there's a lot of different options to consider. But I think first and foremost, still plan to do what you had wanted to do over these last few months.
It's perfect. When you said as far as like graduation and prom, I heard a story of a friend of mine that his daughter, they did a virtual prom in their house because obviously prom was canceled, and so it was so sad to hear him like, oh, that's very sweet, but also it's like your heart just kind of goes out to these students. And and I know the same thing as far as for college graduations, especially I think of like first generation students that we're trying to have families that would join that, and that's sad. But for the fall, I really appreciated when you were talking about as far as just planning accordingly, and that to have also a backup plan. And it's this, I think a lot of the anxiety also from colleges and universities is the unknown, and colleges too are trying to work out, what is a plan A, B, and C, and trying to communicate that effectively. But But just as you said, I mean, students are wanting to be on campus, and colleges want students to be on campus. But how challenging it is right now to really get down to what's it going to look like. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but as far as the current climate, a lot of students, okay, so we have students are preparing for college, and this predominantly, these are students that are rising juniors, they're going to be rising seniors, and they're kind of looking ahead. But what about, I mean, for right now, for fall 2020, any other suggestions for those students that are trying to start in a couple months?
I mean, I still very much think that they should anticipate hopefully going back in the fall, or at least going to campus in the fall. And just like, as you said, colleges are preparing for that too. So they're weighing all the options that they have. Some schools, I mean, I think for everybody, it's going to look a little bit different, at least a little bit different, if not very different. I know some of the larger universities are hoping to be able to test all of their students as they come to campus, which is a huge endeavor, but hey, if they're willing to do it and they've got a good plan to do it, just so that they know, what they can anticipate, and how to keep their student body safe and their faculty safe too. Some schools are doing hybrid classes or blended types of formats where they're doing online and in person. I know some schools might start a week earlier than anticipated so that they can go back after Thanksgiving break, so that they're not having to travel back and forth as often, because that could cause more concern of just, increasing interactions with outside people that are not on campus all the time. So I think that students need to keep in mind and keep an open mind about it, that it's going to look different and it's not going to be exactly what they anticipated. And, and it's unfortunate that it has to be that way, but just also keep in mind that that is something that just happens in life. And unfortunately, this was the timing for them to have to deal with it. But sometimes things in life aren't going to look exactly as you anticipated. So it's about being adaptable. And I think that's a huge part of being able to go off to college, is how adaptable are you to, your environment changes and, the expectations and responsibilities that you're going to have to take on now that you are more independent and on your own too. So I still think that the situation is going to provide a really good learning experience for everybody. And I think, we should all still be proud of what we've been able to do. As upsetting as it is that a lot of traditions have been taken away from this class of 2020, I think it's the way that the entire country and different schools have been able to adapt to the situation so quickly and make adjustments, I think says a lot about how well they're going to be able to do that, when certain circumstances are going to be uncertain in the future. So I think overall, just keep that in mind. If they're able to handle this now, they probably are going to be able to handle a lot of more challenging circumstances in the future. So that's going to be a great thing. And just know that, again, colleges want to see their students on campus. They still want them to have the experience as much as possible. So they're going to stretch every limitation that they can to give that to the students, and still make sure that the students are staying safe too. So they're putting a lot of work into it for the kids.
That's totally true. It's I think, for people outside of education, it can be really it is not always seen just how many different people are involved, as far as for a massive, which is a massive endeavor, at a collegiate setting. There's so many moving pieces and so many players involved to make things happen, for students. But yeah, in some conversations I've had, it's been, it's multiple different options. We're planning for different things for the fall, but also trying to get the message out that this isn't to try and look at it not just the fall, but big picture for the spring after that and the fall after that, and that things will return, and to not look at this as kind of the end. But I love what you said as far as just adaptability, and also as kind of its adaptability and also like opportunity within kind of the crisis is thinking about like, okay, what can you do in the midst of this? But you made some really good points there. So
yeah, I mean, even you're interviewing different college experts and doing this
and high school
format
too.
in high school and doing a format to get the information out. I mean, there's cool opportunities that are happening from this as well.
True. So this is kind of switching tracks a little bit, but I had to bring it up because, and I think a lot of it has stemmed from the pandemic, and trying to create a more accessibility and kind of looking at things almost more holistically than they have been, just that again kind of spurred from circumstances. But you hear all the time right now that more and more colleges are going test optional, and I think back to even when I was in high school, and the massive stress put on, like, you better do well on your ACT or SAT or this. And I know that message has continued, because it seems, and it has been forever ago since I've been in high school, but I'm curious what, with so many more colleges going test optional, how has this impacted you and your role as far as communicating with students? And any comments in general on that? How's that shifted things for you?
Yeah, I think at this time now, and I have so many thoughts on like test optional schools too. But a lot of our junior class, so class of 2021, the students and the parents are really worried because they're the class that didn't get to take the state tests for the SAT in April, as they traditionally would. And so there's just a lot of questions about what's going to happen now. There's a lot of families that, for a lot of them, that was the only standardized test that they were going to take for college entrance admissions exams. So they were really, really relying on that. And that could be for so many reasons. Sometimes it's for financial reasons that they're only because, the state provides that test. But it's also a good opportunity to be able to let those families know if they're on a fee waiver that they can get those fee waivers. They actually have more than one opportunity to take the exam. So it does open up a lot more conversation, but there is concern about like, when are they going to get that done? Is there going to be another one offered, which we think that there will be, just, depending on what the circumstances are going to be in the fall. But again, plans are that we will be offering that in the fall for the students. So hopefully, if nothing else changes. So those are the biggest questions I'm getting from families right now is, how is that going to work? What if they can't take the test? What's going to happen at that point? And so that's when the conversation then turns to, hey, there's a lot of schools at this time that, number one, were already test optional. Number two, that are going test optional. And that's going to differ between the schools based on if they're test optional just for this class of 2021. And some have just said, from now on, we're going to be test optional, even after all of this is over. And then there's some schools that still haven't said anything one way or the other. And again, I think it's because, and I think it's a lot of schools that have just such a set admissions review process that they know that's what works for them. Probably with the volume of applications they're getting, it's still a better way for them to help assess their admissions decisions. And so I think ultimately for those schools, they're probably waiting, and it's going to come down to in the fall, what is going to be available to students. Because like every other school, I think all colleges are still going to want to be as accessible to students and to be able to offer all opportunities to students no matter what the circumstances are. So I think, again, as things are changing week to week with the pandemic right now, we'll probably get even more information as time goes on. But I think it's going to the whole situation is opening up a lot of doors for families. And again, just offering more flexibility. And again, I think a lot of the colleges, it is still very student focused and, family focused of what's going to be best for them overall, because they still want to be able to provide as much as they can to give access to everybody.
Exactly. It's almost like the what isn't being changed, or the why, it's the kind of how, or, in terms of, it's still, the student centeredness is there. And what's trying to be replicated is the full experience, but, the actual method by which you're delivering that, and then from a time standpoint and what that looks like, that really can be up in the air. So, but yeah, so it's interesting. I when you're mentioning that, it also made me think of AP tests and the stress around for students trying to do that. And that just blew my mind as far as trying to think through all that goes into it, and what colleges are working through to try and assess it.
Yeah, and I know, and it's a learning experience for everyone, and so I think a lot of people have just shown a lot of grace too around the college board trying to figure that out too. I know ACT announced that they were going to allow students to take tests online from home, which honestly I feel like most students are probably think that's the greatest thing ever, because it alleviates a lot of just test anxiety of being in a testing environment. And I know College Board was planning to do the same with the SAT, but they've already now had a little bit of a practice run with their AP exams going online, and are wanting just to make some more adjustments, and because of the trial and error that they had with that too. So again, I think everyone's adapting, and I think honestly, it was probably a path that they would have moved to eventually. It just kind of, the process just got sped up because of everything that was going on now. But I mean, in our world of technology and just how everything has kept shifting because of it, I think it's something that probably would have happened in the future anyways.
I agree. Just provided that nice little push.
Yeah.
Or not a nice push, but a dramatic and terrible push. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you so much for all that you do for students, and again for doing this. And it's been a pleasure to work with you in some capacity over all these years. And you do amazing things. So thank you, April.
Thank you, and good luck with the future episodes. I know there's going to be a lot of good information being shared out there.